Welcome everybody to Rainy Nights, this segment of my YouTube where I interview other motovloggers and motorcycle personalities. If you haven't been here before, I am Rainy Rider. I ride a BMW and a Harley Sportster. Feel free to comment and like and give me a subscription. Tonight we have one of the most interesting people who to have happened to YouTube in the last few months, Joe the Mountain Jedi. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Like people don't know you already, but where are you from and what do you ride?
Well, originally I'm from Northwest Arkansas, and then I moved to Tennessee, and then I wound up down here in Florida. So we went from hot muggy to hot muggy. So ain't a whole hell of a lot changed there. Uh, my daily rider, I mean, the shop truck, let's put it that way. It's a '06 Yamaha Roadstar. It's got a little bit of an identity crisis because it's got a shitload of Harley and Honda and stuff I picked up here and there along the way. I'm not really sure where in the hell it came from, parts on it, but it works. It gets the job done. Main thing is it does what I want it to do.
Run. It runs.
Yeah,
That's the important
it
part.
does that too.
All right, let's see who we've got in the chat tonight. Laura Carpenter is here. Welcome, Laura. Gmart Rides, Donna Pillion
Hey, Laura.
Style, Serenity Kitty, Bleak Rides, one of my favorite guys. Flip Elliott, Buck Brown, my other brother. Uh, who else? And Shelby Daytona and the Mad Yankees. So welcome in, everybody. Glad to have you here. And Chasing Ghost just stepped in. Chasing Ghost just had a live. I was getting ready for this one when I saw that I missed hers. So very sorry there, Ghost. I will get your. I'll watch yours after I finish mine. Priorities. But so let's go ahead and roll. So how long have you been riding?
Uh, 3 months? No, wait a minute, that's bullshit. Uh, I started like one of those little, tiny diminutive bobblehead sized tiny humans when I was 4, and it just kind of went from there. I started racing a JR50 Suzuki when I was 5, and it's pretty bad whenever your mom starts breaking out the family photo albums. She's got a picture of you with training wheels on your race bike.
I think that's
That's
pretty
hard to live
cool.
down, man.
No, that's awesome. I remember the
But no,
Yamahas.
I went from a JR50 to a YZ80, so the learning curve was pretty steep, and I crashed my ass off for a while.
In the early 2000s, they were selling I think the PW50s with training wheels on them, trying to get young kids into riding. So yeah, that's ain't nothing wrong with that.
Man, actually, back in the early '90s, whenever I first started out at a Kawasaki Suzuki dealership, the JR50s they came with a training wheel kit, and whenever we'd break these things out of the box, they ship them two to a box, and we'd set one up with training wheels and one without, and the one without we'd put like spacers for the bar risers and all that on there. It's like this is for the little guy. This is for the little guy when he's not so little.
Perfect. So being in Arkansas and now being in Florida, do you consider yourself a fair weather rider or a rough rider?
Uh, it doesn't matter. I ride. I mean, I'm bike only unless I steal the car from the wife unit, and that's kind of a rarity these days because it's not very often anymore. She gets a chance to work from home. So, you know, there's a reason I've got 3 pairs of the same work boots. That way I can rotate around, and one of them's drying out while I'm getting the other one's wet if it works out that way.
No, I feel that I've done that more than once, and I got a boot dryer, and it's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I've used it for a helmet dryer also, because yeah, the rain is relentless, and you don't get a choice. So obviously, I work for Indy Ridge. I got quite a few pairs of boots, but yeah, I got to where I can cycle them out, give them time to dry, whether it be sweat, rain, whatever. It's yeah, it's real important that they dry out because that shit will sneak up on you quick. You were in the military, weren't you?
Oh yeah. Well, I was Army Reserve for a very brief period of time because they had it in my jacket whenever I went to MEPS. I had to go to MEPS 3 times before they would sign off on my physical and everything where I could do my enlistment. And I went to boot, I went to schoolhouse, and I was with my reserve unit for 10 months, and then they bounced me on medical because they said I had a pre-existing condition. And this was during the big drawdown right after the first Gulf War and everything. So they were shutting down bases right and left. And at the time, man, I was pissed. I'm like, man, I went through all this crap for you guys, and you're kicking my ass out. But to be honest with you, that whole hindsight thing, you know, had I stayed in, uh, my life would have turned out a whole lot differently than what it is right now. So at least I can live vicariously through my kids.
Was it Tom T. Hall
They're
says?
both out now, so.
Tom T. Hall says, if I had my whole life to live over, I'd find different ways to make the same mistakes again. Your life ends up how your life is supposed to be. So, all right.
Well,
so, go ahead.
Sorry, bug. My bad.
All right. So you talked a little bit
I've got
about
free range critters out here in my garage. Okay.
Out in the garage. So the name of your garage is what? The Jedi Temple?
Yeah, that's just it. Kind of fits, so we just stuck with it and rolled with it. Uh, I mean, in all honesty, it probably should have been called the Fire Hazard. I mean, that's a much more apt name, but it's not as sexy sounding.
Actually, no, that sounds fine to me. I was in a band in the ship called Hazardous Noise. So yeah, whatever works. All right. How did you get into motorcycles? You talked about it a little bit.
Well, I started riding when I was, and I don't even remember this. I mean, I was like small size, but my dad would, rode whenever I came along, and a lot of people don't know this about me, but I was adopted. I found out, later on down the line, but my dad rode when I was a kid, and he would ride me around the yard sitting on the gas tank on his bike. And I was young enough, I don't remember any of this, but apparently something stuck because my grandma started harping on him, you need to get rid of that thing or else the kid's going to climb on it and get hurt, blah, 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 blah. Well, it kind of went from there. And then dad come up with this old beat up JR50 that we pieced together. And it was one of the early ones too, man. I mean, it's back when they still had the oval side panels on them and all that. But he picked it up at a yard sale or something, and he tinkered around on it, got it running. And that's what I started out on, and just kind of repeated the cycle, worked my way up, rebuilding old junk and turning it into something where I could make it work.
So,
but, I started, started racing motocross here and there, and I raced quite a bit, when I was in high school. But when I first broke into the bike biz, our local dealership there in Fort Smith, Arkansas, on the other side of the Arkansas River from Van Buren, where I grew up, excuse me. My dad knew the owner there, because we'd been in there a lot buying parts and things like that. And anyway, I went over there one day and I'm like, hey, I'd like to learn how to do this stuff. And if you let me, hang around and push a broom and stuff like that, you ain't got to pay me. Just I'd like to learn how to do this and kind of see if I can, make something of it. And I guess they felt sorry for me or something like that. So they finally got tired of me pestering them and they put me on the payroll. And, a couple of years later, I got sponsored to go to the Kawasaki factory school. And this is back when they still had it up in York, Pennsylvania. So that's how I spent my summer vacation in between my freshman and my sophomore year in high school. And then the next year, I went to the Suzuki factory tech school for 6 weeks and, started working there. And I was there for about 4.5 years. And then I honestly, in hindsight, I made a mistake. I went to the Honda dealership that was in Fort Smith for about a year and a half, and I picked up a few things here and there. But the Honda dealership had a definitely different vibe than the Kawasaki shop I started out in. And after high school, I thought, well, cars are going to be more money. It's going to be more consistent, yada yada yada. Because where I was living at Arkansas, 5 months out of the year, nobody rides because, weather, cold, ice on the road, all that crap. So I thought, well, I'll do cars. And I did automotive stuff for, 15, 16 years, kind of worked my way. And I mean, me and dad had always worked on stuff around the house and everything. So I had a decent amount of knowledge, going into it. But anyway, I did that as a day gig, but I always did bikes out of my garage at the house, on the weekends or in the evenings, something like that. And uh, after the Napa that I was managing in eastern Oklahoma closed down, I went back into the bike biz as a day gig, and that was back in 2004. Yeah, yeah, 2004, and I've been doing bikes as a full time deal, ever since then. So, but and here we are.
So, what was the first bike that you had? Do you consider yourself a true biker or a motorcyclist?
Well, I don't know. I thought I was pretty badass on my YZ80, at least until I looped it out from underneath me. That hurt. But no, I mean, my first street bike when I was in junior high, because in Arkansas, you could ride anything, or at the time, you could ride anything up to a 250 until, you were 16. And then after you turned, you could start riding on the street when you were 14. And I bought a 250 Eliminator from Kawasaki. That kind of explains hen's teeth sitting over there. But anyway, I had that 250 Eliminator, and man, I put close to 50,000 miles on that thing before I sold it. But rain or shine, I was on that thing. There was one time when my mom tried to ground me from my bike, and she tried to take my keys because she was worried about me riding in the winter and it being too cold. She thought I was going to come down sick and all that. And I'm like, hey, it is what it is. So yeah, man. I mean, I'd have to say the little 250 Eliminator is where it started, from a street riding standpoint.
I had a friend in high school who had an 883 Sportster, and his mom grounded him, but then the Sportster is how he got to school. So he took some very long
Yeah,
trips coming back from school to get home. But yeah,
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
life. All right. So who inspires you to ride? You talked a little bit about this again, but who inspired you to really get into motorcycles in general and start riding? Not just the PWs, but like just
I,
riding.
honestly, if anything, I'd have to say first and foremost my dad, because my dad, when I was young, my dad had stepped away from motorcycles, and I could tell, just the way he talked about it, it was something that he really missed. It was something that he really enjoyed doing, and that was something that I wanted to share with him. And yeah, I'd say solid answer on that being my dad. My dad was a lot of things to me in my life, and I'd say, yeah, that had to be the focal point there for me wanting to pursue it and move forward. Uh, the mechanics side of things, that that pretty much came about out of necessity because you know mom and dad were working class folks. I ain't gonna lie, man. I grew up poor. We did what we had to do. Me and Dad were always working odd jobs during the summer and things like that. Where we could make ends meet or be able to afford to do this or whatever. So that's just kind of how I grew up.
Yeah, that's how I got into street bikes. I'd rode bikes when I was little, but when all my other friends were growing up and they were getting Mustangs and Camaros and the Datsuns and the 280ZXs, I got a $1,600 Yamaha 650 turbo because their cars
You
cost
had to mention
7,000, 8,000.
280Zs. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, you had to mention 280Zs. My first car in high school was a five different shade of yellow shitbox 280Z. It was a straight Z, not a ZX. And man, that thing, the stuff that thing survived and the secrets that car kept, oh shit. Uh, I thought, well, the yellow's kind of gross looking, especially considering, there's like three different colors on one side of the car and two different colors on the other side. But, I started sanding it down and I thought, yeah, I'll paint it. We'll paint it black. And that's when reality set in because I started sanding on the front fender and I found some Bondo. Kept sanding, 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 sanding. And the guy that I bought this car off of, I don't know if it was him or who he got it off of or whatever, but there was a cake of Bondo in the driver's side front fender at one point. It was literally 4 inches thick. I mean, that fender had to weigh close to 100
Oh
pounds.
Lord, bodybuilding.
But yeah, man, dude, that thing, that 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 car that car developed my vocabulary pretty quickly. I'm not gonna lie, and probably for all the wrong reasons.
Nothing wrong with that. All right. So, would you rather a solo ride or a group ride?
Mostly, I do my own thing. Now, if to me a group ride, that's when we might get 3 to 5 people together at the most, because I've done big group rides before, and I mean, basic survival skills, you got to keep your head on a swivel, especially living where we live here in Tampa, man. I mean, it's literally like Thunderdome some mornings driving into work, going across the Howard Franklin Bridge, and that's every day. But with a larger group of people, especially somebody that you don't know really well, you got that little voice in the back of your head going, "Hey, watch out for that guy. He's doing some squirrely shit." So like big group rides, generally I don't go on, because it's one of those things. I don't feel like having to watch out for somebody else doing something dumb on top of my normal watching out for what's going on around me.
Yeah, agreed. I might do a big group ride one or two times
Especially
a
like
year
my
for toy run or a poker run or something for a charity. But as a rule, as a daily, I just can't. People bug me. People bother me too
yeah
much.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's too peoply out here.
We've had more people come into the chat. So Sick Bastard has stepped in. Buck Brown, Wife Unit stepped in. Welcome to Wife Unit. As you talk about stealing her car. Sky's Limit stepped in. Mad Yankee, Shelby, Neil, and Julie Smith. Welcome in, Julie Smith. If you guys got any
Sorry,
questions
because
for
right
us,
now, brother, hold up. You're gonna have to back up a few seconds.
what happened? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you now.
Okay. Yeah, the storm, I guess, is still dragging down a little bit. If you guys have any questions for us, make sure you highlight. Joe, are you watching? Do you have Wife Unit watching the side chat for you, or I think I'm losing Joe. If you guys have questions, put them in the chat. Highlight. Do at Rainy Rider or at Joe the Mountain Jedi, and we'll see your questions.
But I can, bro.
You're coming in and out. I think I'm starting to lose you a little bit. Let's keep it going. You'll come back. So just keep
Yeah, you're coming in and out on my end,
dude. I think it's the weather. All right. Do you do moto meetup? Do you
dude.
do
Eventually.
bike nights or do they
Yeah,
have?
well, right now the cable line coming off.
We are having obviously technical difficulties because what fun would it be if it wasn't live, right? Jima, I did
Yeah,
not see
right.
your question. Jima, I did not see your question. Go ahead and ask it again. All right. Laura has a question. If you could go back and tell your younger self one thing, what would it be? A piece of advice.
Um, Man, I got to think on that. I mean, I'm digging deep with that. Hmm, Man, I don't know. There's so much bad advice I could dole out there. I could write a memoir on that alone. I don't know. We're gonna have to circle back on that a
We'll
little
circle
bit.
back
I
on
got to
that one.
ponder on that. That's some soul searching right there.
Okay, I think we were having problems when I asked you this question. Do you do bike meetups? Do you do bike nights or poker runs or anything like that?
Man, I used to, and anymore, honestly, I just don't have the time, and it sucks, and I miss it, But between the day job and helping my mom out, since I got my mom moved down here from Arkansas, and doing stuff for her, and then plus now with the YouTube thing, there ain't a whole lot of free time in the day.
Okay, it's a fair question. Laura also has another question. What book would you recommend someone, one book that everyone should read?
Well, if you're a sci-fi nerd like I am, uh, anything, and I mean anything, from the Alien universe because I'm kind of a nerd like that. But the world building that they do with that is just it's staggering how far it can go, especially if you let it get in your head and just kind of roll with it. It's pretty cool. But then again, I'm kind of a nerd that way, so
Oh, I love sci-fi.
go figure. Uh, yeah, yeah, I'm a big sci-fi fan. I've read sci-fi man my whole life, and it's. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I read other genres as well, but I always come back into sci-fi, and that's something that I just really, really can get my head wrapped around and get invested with because it's something that draws me in very easily. And I start looking at it from both the storyline, but also the technical aspect of it. I wonder how they did that. And it's just one of those things that makes the brain work.
Shelby says one piece of advice he would give is don't be a professional mechanic.
Well, it's kind of like telling a plastic surgeon, hey, don't like boobs. First day of plastic surgery school, you have to develop a distaste for boobs.
Fair enough. All right. What is the stupidest thing you have ever done on a motorcycle?
Say what now?
What's the stupidest thing you have ever done on a motorcycle?
Oh man. Again, we've got a list. Uh, well, we the house I grew up in Arkansas, about a mile down the road, there was a section line road that cut across from Kibler Highway to Highway 64. And there was a train line that ran pretty much smack dab in the middle of it. And on one side, there, was a pretty gentle slope going up to the rail bed for the train. On the other side, it was steep as hell. So, we'd always get dumb and, we all rode dirt bikes. So, we'd always, hit it one way or the other, air it out, because on one side, I mean, dude, you could plow that thing doing 40 mile an hour, hit a nice gradual slope on the other side. You could land it nice and soft. But the other way, you get some sick air. And I kind of forgot in my brain that, hey, dummy, you're not on a KX 125, you're on a 250 Eliminator. And there's about a 200-pound difference there. Not to mention, you got your big ass on top of it. So, I'm coming up the steep side. I'm like, I'm going to catch spare and whip it. This is going to be sick. Well, I stuck it. I landed it, but man, that shit hurt. uh, the 250 Eliminator had this little bubble fairing around the headlight, and it had a little dinky windscreen on there. It was so short you'd never be able to look through it. But man, my head came down, and I smoked that thing so hard I busted that fairing completely off the headlight and off the brackets that it mounted on. And I was wearing an open face helmet at the time, so a piece of plastic come up and it cut me right underneath my nose here. So I'm through with blood everywhere, and I got it running all down my t-shirt and everything. I get home, and Dad looks at me, and he's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." Did something kind of dumb. He's like, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Yeah, it's better you don't because I really don't want to tell you. But, it's one of them things. You live, you learn, you get a cool story out of it. Then you realize, yeah, that was pretty damn stupid. I don't know what the hell I was thinking.
So was it a self-correcting error, or did you ever do it again? Did you learn from it? What did you learn from it?
Be able to say yes, but I can't. Uh, no, we still kept doing it and everything. It's just I paid a lot more attention to what seat I had my ass parked on at the time because there were a few times when we would bootleg a dirt bike down the pavement just a little bit, and that on a long travel motocross bike. Oh hell yeah, that was awesome, dude. It was a blast. But street bike, not so much.
Did you at least go to a full face helmet? Save the lip.
Yeah, yeah.
We had another question. Uh, Buck Brown asked, "What's one thing regarding motorcycles you wish you would have learned sooner?"
Uh, Honestly, I got to say electric. because electrical stuff is something that everybody in the shop at one point in time is going to struggle with to a certain extent. And the sooner you get in on a basic knowledge level and then begin to build on that ability, the easier everything else down the road is going to be for you. And that, that's something where I've constantly felt like I've had to play catch up, be it basic electrical, like why the hell won't this tail light come on, all the way up to, okay, we've got to follow this wiring schematic to figure out why this one's fuel injector is only working at 30% duty cycle whenever the ECU is commanded 45% duty cycle, but it's only this one injector right here. That's where things get a little interesting.
I think even as far as like the Sportster, anything you do on that Sportster except for taking the exhaust off, you got to unwire something or cut wires or lengthen wires or so it's. I did a relocation for the blinkers, relocation for the brake light. I put fog lights on it, moved the headlight, and everything involved cutting the wires and moving them. Even lengthening when I did the fender replacement, everything involves cutting wires.
Yep.
So it's something that you getting used to soldering and getting used to stretching wires and knowing what you can do and what you can't do on the bike. But yeah, electrical extremely important.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, I thought we had another question, but I guess we.
Sorry, I was
don't.
catching up on comments here a little
Yeah,
bit.
I was too. I thought we had another question in the comment, but didn't. Diana, my Diana asked, did you get a scar from your wreck from kissing the headlight?
Yeah, actually, you can't hardly see it, but I got a little bit of a scar right here below my nose. Because it sliced my upper lip open right below my nose here. Little bitty guy. Besides, I've had 30 odd years for that to kind of fade away a little bit, so it don't stand out the way it used to.
Okay. Matt Yankee asked, why do Polaris engineers hate people so much? Yankee has a Indian Scout. Or is it Scout? Yeah.
Yeah, well, the the thing is, it's not really the Indian, and it's not really the engineers hate people so much. It's just the new Indians to me, the way that I've always thought about it in my brain, and my brain's a scary place, but the way it's always landed to me is these were a motorcycle that were designed and manufactured by a committee of accountants, marketing nerds, and the actual mechanical input from the mechanical engineer that amounted to about 15 to 18% of the total package.
You're back. Okay. I lost you for a little bit, but so let's blame it on the accountants. Greg Forehand stepped in. Welcome, Greg Forehand. I just saw you pop in.
Hey, Greg, how you doing, everybody?
Oh, I also saw Ray was in earlier. I forgot. Sorry, Ray. Ray Gregory was here earlier. I miss it every once in a while because I forget that Ray Gregory changed his channel name, but he is here. Chasing Ghost is asking if you have ever rode a Kawasaki 750 triple. The water buffalo.
Oh, yes. Me love me some two smoke stuff.
First Kawasaki I ever got on tried to kill me, so I tried to stay away from Kawasaki's now. It was also a 750.
Well, the bike that started all this crap for me, whenever I was a wee little scrog in diapers, that was actually a '73 Suzuki Water Buffalo. But I mean, as far as the Widowmaker, the 750 Cowie Triple, yeah, I've built a few of those bikes. I've ridden a few of those bikes. I've had a few of those bikes where I spent a few minutes digging the seat cover out of my butt. So yeah, they're the whole phrase hinge in the middle, it definitely applies on those things whenever you get them over, in a corner doing 80 plus mile an hour, and all of a sudden you hit a bunch of ripples in the pavement because that thing feels like it's made out of rubber bands.
Now, mine was a 750 LTD, and it threw me through a ditch across a barbed wire fence, and where it landed, I left it. And a friend went and got it and bought it from me on site because I was like, I'm not even going to go get it. I'm just going to leave it there. So
Now, as far as Kawasaki stuff goes, had my 250 Eliminator, had a 250 Ninja. Uh, what else did I have? I very briefly had a 454 LTD. That was like the precursor to the 500 Vulcan. But and now I've got the 900 Eliminator. My dad almost bought a Voyager 12, the 1200cc Kawasaki touring bike, and I'm kind of glad he did, but I kind of wish that he had. Or excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm kind of glad that he didn't, but then again, I kind of wish that he had, because I mean, what's not to love about a sleeper screaming four cylinder that's got saddlebags and stuff on it,
Nothing. Chasing Ghost says she put hers through a barbed wire fence in 1994. So my other sister, she's already my Texas sister, but yeah. What is it about people from Texas putting Kawasaki's through barbed wire fences?
Well, I mean, let's be
What's
real
your
about it,
comments?
okay? It's Texas, so there's barbed wire everywhere you look
True
at,
story.
Uh, you know,
I'll buy that.
like in Northwest Arkansas, where I grew up at. Take your pick. You've either got the razor wire highway median dividers, or you've got the big metal highway rails that looks like a snow shovel that goes on for miles.
Which also looks like a giant razor blade.
Oh, yeah, and also you got all the suicidal deer too.
Laura Carpenter is asking how you get into RC cars.
It's just something I was interested in. I mean, I got an RC car for Christmas whenever I was like 7, 8 years old, something like that. You know, after playing with it for a couple of weeks, I'm like, how do I make this thing faster? And plus I got tired of buying batteries all the time, and it just kind of went from there. Uh, I started out with one of the old Tamiya Foxes, and man, back then, I thought, cool, I can drive this thing a whole 5 minutes before I got to recharge the battery for 45 minutes, and I can jump it, the wheels don't pop off. And it just kind of went from there. But I played around with, on my RC cars, I do both electric and nitro, and honestly, my electric's faster. But the nitro stuff, that kind of appeals to my inner gearhead, because it's a itty bitty little tiny two-stroke motor, and the things, I've got some of them that scream over 30,000 RPM.
Jesus. Shelby wants to know, have you started training Squidboy to ride so he doesn't have to push spikes into the shop? That's an inside story, maybe.
No, not yet.
So what's the story behind
for
that?
for a lot of you guys that don't know, for a lot of you guys out there that don't know, Petty Officer Squidboy, he works with us up at the ride factory nowadays, and well, it's like I said the other night, you got to crawl before you walk. So we've got to get his bike done, because I want him to learn on his bike, and I want him, all the oopsies and tip overs. I want him to get that out of the system on his bike before we move on to something else.
Good decision. All right. So what was your scariest?
That way, yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, man.
What was your scariest moment on a bike?
I don't remember the exact dates, but my junior year of high school, I crashed my dad's venture, and it was from me being stupid. And leaving out all the details that really don't matter, at the end of the day, what happened, I was going down a highway off ramp, and they had just put a stoplight at the bottom of this off ramp. And I was coming from Fort Smith heading back to Van Buren, and it had just started raining. Now, there used to be a four-way stop at the bottom of this off ramp. And since they put the light in there, you've got cars sitting there dribbling oil on the pavement and everything. And it just started raining. And at the time, I had 150 pounds worth of 6 foot tall Amazon woman girlfriend on the back with me. And I just barely eased into the front brakes, and it was like on ice, just gone. and I slid into the back of this guy's 72 Ford F-150, and I bent the tailgate in like that with the back of my head and my shoulders because the bike went underneath the truck. Me and the girlfriend hit the tailgate, boated in, and it popped us up over the cab, and I ended up landing on the ground in front of the truck. And man, you talk about a jolt to the central nervous system. I mean, that will definitely wake you up.
So were there helmets, any safety gear, or were we just guys out? I used to live in Arkansas. There was no helmet law when I lived there. So were you guys safetied up, or were you living your best life?
Oh no, we were wearing helmets. We were wearing helmets. We were wearing gear. I mean, we were wearing leather jackets, gloves, stuff like that. You know, blue jeans because it was like late April, early May, so it was still a little on the cool side.
Arkansas is where I had my
But
worst wreck
still, man,
ever. I was in
what
Jones.
part did you live in anyway?
I lived in Jonesboro.
Oh, okay.
So again, in April, May, it was raining, and I T-boned a truck that pulled out in front of me.
Yeah.
And the only reason I had a helmet on is because it was raining. The only reason I had a jacket on is because it was
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I'm I'm not one of the safety Nazis where, I'm gonna sit there and point my finger and go, you don't need to do that. I mean, everybody, hey, you do you, whatever works for you. Just, I'll wear a helmet. It's down here in Florida, 90% of the time, I'm wearing blue jeans, I'm wearing my work boots, and I'll wear a helmet, I'll wear, just lightweight gloves. Usually I'm wearing a vest, and that's about it. I mean, unless it's wintertime, it's rare that I break out the jacket. Uh, there's been times where I've lost a little hide from it, but it's a decent trade off in my brain because I've got my hands protected, I got my head protected, I got my ass somewhat protected, and the rest of me, I can breathe and not drown in my own sweat. So
yep, we were talking about live last night. Looking back when I was a teenager, riding in tennis shoes, cut off jeans, and sunglasses, and that's about it. To now, where I will wear a helmet all the time. I have to wear gloves and I have to wear boots and long pants. I will never get on a
yeah,
bike with regular shoes on. But what Steve from Indy Ridge says, we were talking a couple of weeks ago, says if you break a leg or you break an arm, it's going to heal. You may think about it every once in a while, but it's not going to be a permanent injury. If you crush a hand or crush a foot or crush your head, that's a pretty permanent injury. You'll
yeah,
never recover from that. So always boots, always gloves, and always helmet now. And I will not get on the bike without them. I'll get on with a t-shirt,
yeah,
thin pants
absolutely.
maybe, but never without a helmet.
Yeah, I mean, I always wear gloves. I always wear a helmet. And the thing is, the way I look at it, I mean, I make my living with my hands. So if I beat my hands up, hey, bills ain't going to get paid, food ain't going to be in the fridge, and I'm going to be in a hell of a spot. So you gotta prioritize things.
Oh yeah, I punched a bumblebee one time going about 80, and I literally thought my hand flew off my arm. It was just a little bee, not a little bee, a bumblebee, but
Yeah,
I've caught gravel in the hand, and the same thing. It's like something so small when you're going 80, 85 miles an hour can be debilitating. So yeah, definitely always gloves.
yeah. I had a bird try to tunnel his way through my sternum doing about 80 mile an hour when I was still in high school. And I don't know what kind of bird it was. All I know was it felt like the hammer of God punched me in the chest, and I had a beak embedded in my damn
I do
chest
remember
through
this
my
story.
t-shirt. But
Yeah, cool things. All right, what has been your favorite part of riding?
I'd have to say just getting out and riding, man. I mean, because it's a it's a different brain space. As soon as I get on a bike, especially like, I mean, I ride bikes, test riding or things like that. That's one thing. I'm dialed in and I'm looking for stuff or I'm trying to reproduce a problem. But whenever I'm on my own, whenever I leave the shop or if I'm just out and about, I, I'm in my own space. And in my head, I can do whatever the hell I want. I can think about what I want. I can, put myself on autopilot somewhat. I'm still paying attention to my surroundings, but I'll have conversations in my head with myself. I'll think about, what what I'm going to do for dinner that night. I'll think about, the kick-ass book that I read, just whatever, because it gives me a chance to just kind of basically lock myself up inside my own head to where I can tune out the rest of the world and I don't have to worry about a damn thing except for what I'm doing right then, right there. And nothing else matters except for what I'm doing, what I see in front of me, what I see around me. And, you know, I just kind of just lose myself in it.
Yep, absolutely. It's good therapy and it's a good way to get away from. There's nothing else you can think about, and I say this all the time. No matter what problems you've got, when you get on a motorcycle, they go away because it just totally filters your
Yep.
mind into something else. Christian Biker, welcome
Yeah.
in.
It's a good way to deal with what you may have going on in your own headspace at the time, but at the same time, it's a way to work through stuff and kind of put things in order whenever you've got chaos going on in the background.
Absolutely. Ghost, I actually work in Millington. Message me later. Tell me when you're going to get here and where you're going to be, and maybe I can make plans to meet you tomorrow. Cool. While we got this time, everybody, I was asked by Jeremiah, make sure you go and register if you're going to the camp out at www.forgottenangelsflorida.org. Register. Well, they will get the meals counted. We'll have enough food for all the people who are going to be there. If you haven't bought your ticket, go ahead and buy it now. If you just want to donate, if you're not going to the camp out, go to the website and donate a few bucks. A few bucks can go a long way for these kids. So, and that's what we're there for. So, think about helping out. All right, our next question. Flip side, what's been the most frustrating part of riding for you?
Honestly, I got to say, whenever like I never really got frustrated riding until I started commuting. Uh, because it's weird how it's worked out, but virtually every shop that I've worked at since I went back to bikes on a full time basis, I've had a pretty lengthy commute to and from. Like when I was living in Oklahoma, it was 40 miles from my house to the shop I worked at, so I had an 80-mile a day round trip, and that was mostly back roads and state highways. So I could make pretty good time there. But when I when I moved back to Arkansas, still working at the same shop. The distance was about the same, but I had a different route I had to take in. So I went through a lot more city traffic through Fort Smith. That was aggravating. And then when we moved to Tennessee, we lived just northwest of Nashville, and Nashville traffic is terrifying. I'll tell you that right now. Uh, I deal with Tampa traffic on the daily, and I will take Tampa traffic all day long over Nashville traffic, especially when you get down towards the Gulch, around the Penny Ryle interchange and all that. That's scary because it's basically like being in Thunderdome.
I like driving through Birmingham over Atlanta trying to go home, but when you go through Birmingham, there's about a 5 mile stretch that you'll do a lane change literally about every tenth of a mile because they've made so many clover leaves now and spinoffs. There's always at least one turn that I will miss trying to go
Yep.
From the South Birmingham up towards heading towards Memphis, and it's just
Yep.
crazy. Cities are getting
Yeah,
too
we
big.
ran into a little bit of that whenever I moved my daughter from Camp Pendleton to Cherry Point. Whenever they PCS, back to the East Coast last year.
Got a couple of questions for you. Yankee says, a serious question. What's your favorite platform to work on? Not necessarily the easiest or the one you know the best, but the one that gives you the most personal satisfaction.
Hang on there, bub. I gotta jump up and find his comment because your audio broke up just a little bit there.
Okay.
Okay. favorite platform to work on, that's going to be kind of a two-part answer there because number one, uh, either Banshee or other similar multi-cylinder two-stroke, I will work on that stuff all day long. I love it. I mean, it's old tech, it's smoky, it's nasty, it's dirty. You know, all the people in California hate it because they swear it's going to kill off the spotted desert tortoise. But man, it's a hell of a rush whenever you get them dialed in and they're running right. So anything along those lines. I mean, hell, when I was living in Oklahoma, I was playing around with the little stupid cheap Chinese two-stroke pocket bikes, and we'd race those on go-kart tracks every now and then. You know, and that was a hell of a lot of fun. It looked like a elephant riding a piss ant, but you know, we were having a good time. But as far as a street bike application like four-stroke stuff, I mean, give me an old, you know, KZ, whatever, four cylinder or Suzuki GS base four cylinder, something like that. They're tanks, man. I mean, and there's so much you can do with those things to get more out of them, improve upon them, things like that. You know, I mean, the sky is virtually the limit. Look at all the four cylinder bikes that are running in pro stock and they have been, you know, dominant in pro stock, you know, until AMA basically gave a free pass to Vance Hines with the V twin motor. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? My bad. Y'all just disregard that part, okay? Uh, anyway, you look at all this stuff, all these pro stock bikes that are, you know, tapping 200 mile an hour in the pro stock class. Those are all based on production bikes that were put down on paper and developed and produced back in the early 70s, man. I mean, we're talking the KZs, we're talking the GSs, especially the roller bearing crank GSs. I mean, it is insane how they have built off of that platform and they've literally gone from the technology and horsepower level of it's like you're comparing a slingshot to a laser guided, you know, 2,000 pound bomb with how steep the curve as far as development and power delivery of those things has got. It's insane what they do with these motors.
Okay.
So yeah, there
So,
you go.
so
Uh,
personal question while we're talking about
I
four
love hot
cylinder,
rod shit.
why do people love the Suzuki Bandit but hate the Suzuki SV 650 when they're almost the same bike? Or to me, they are.
No, they're not. They're a completely different critter. I mean, you're talking a inline four cylinder platform that's based on the Katana motor versus uh, a 90-degree V twin that's a fairly large bore short stroke V twin that you know it's capable of running at high RPM, but you know it's literally no comparison between the two.
So why the hate for
Now,
the
you may have a
SV?
little bit of I don't know why people trash on the SV so much. I mean, they're a very well-rounded bike. They're a very forgiving bike for somebody that's just getting into the sport. But the thing is, they're so versatile that you can literally have no knowledge of motorcycling. You can go buy an early 2000s, you know, cheap, rough around the edges, carbureted SV 650. You can learn on it, and then as your skill set builds, you can improve upon it. You can get more out of it. Start doing track days with it, and then you can race the thing competitively, and they last. I mean, they're a good bike, man. I mean, I really don't understand why people hate on it so much because I mean, they you can lug them around and chug a lug them at lower RPM, you know, just commuting back and forth. They've got a power curve a mile wide, but on the flip side, if you need to get somewhere with a quickness, back a couple of downshifts, let it eat, let it sing, and just go, man. I mean, they don't have a problem with high RPM.
Okay. Laura had a question. If they were going to make a movie about your life, who would you pick to play you?
Nobody, because I wouldn't want to wish that. I wouldn't want to wish that on anybody. I really wouldn't. Um, man. Uh, yeah, no, no. I'm gonna pass on that one. Sorry, Laura. That the closest thing I got for you on that. Uh, God, I can't remember the name of the movie, but the guy's dressed in a hot dog suit and he's standing in the middle of the football field and he's screaming at people, "Ask me about my wiener." I mean, it'd be that guy.
What? I've never seen that. I've never seen that. I'm gonna have to Google it now. Maybe I shouldn't Google
The,
"Ask me
the
about
name
my
of
wiener." That's probably not something that's good to Google.
yeah, you be careful with that, guys. Okay, don't do it on a computer where kids have access. Please do that. Okay.
Welcome in, Seventh Sentinel. Glad to see you here. Okay, so solid pass. Gma says Sam Elliott could play you.
Oh no, no, because I don't think that I could ask the man that brought Orange Sackett to life to step himself down to that point. Sorry, I couldn't do the man justice.
They said the movie is accepted. I've never even heard of it. Okay, I gotta look it up.
That's right. Yeah, I'd forgotten the name of that.
Okay, keep throwing your questions in there. We'll make our way back around to the questions. Um, all right. So, do you ever actually take some time off and just go for long rides, go on trips, get out of the state, go places? Do you have any
Man, I wish I
plans?
could, to be honest with you. Uh, not this past July, reboot, not this past July, but last July, me and my wife had our 25th wedding anniversary, and more or less, I kind of sort of kidnapped her. And we went down to Key West. We took the scooter, went down to Key West. We were down there for 3 days. I had a ball with that, man. I do miss, the riding that we had up north because, up there we have these things called curves, and they just don't have those down here in Florida. Uh, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit jaded because where I grew up at, uh, we were, call it 20 to 30 minutes from away from the pig trail, pretty much, where I grew up at. Uh, so we had plenty of mountain riding up there. It was a ball. But the ride down to Key West and back, man, that was fun. I've been to Key West before, but seeing it from a bike, it's totally different than seeing it, being stuck inside of a car. Especially when you're going across a 7 mile bridge. You look around and you got water, look over here, you got water again. Oh, hey, look, a dolphin. Isn't that cool? Hey, we're still on a bridge, but it's just it just hits different. It's a good time. It's a real good time.
Okay.
I would love to be able to hear, here probably in the fall whenever it starts cooling down a little bit. I'd love to be able to, go up to North Carolina, up to Cherry Point, because that's where my daughter and her husband's at right now. I'd love to be able to take a long weekender, go up there to visit them and my grandson and all that. The biggest issue that me and the wife unit have is time, with my job, her job, especially with what she does. Uh, Man, her schedule's all over the place and it changes on a weekly basis. So it's kind of hard to plan for stuff like that.
Uh, Buck Brown says Florida is often referred to as the reverse dragon, 11 curves and 318 miles.
Brother Buck, you nailed that right on the damn head because that ain't too far from the truth. Uh, what we have here locally that most people refer to as curves, it's kind of where the road arcs a little. It's not really a curve. I've seen so many rear tires on motorcycles that look like a car tire by the time we change them out. I've never seen that any other place than since when I moved down here to Florida.
Oh yeah, I just changed the back tire on the BMW, and so I was online was giving me shit because I wore it down to the wire and was barely into the side of the tires at all. People are like, well, you don't know how to ride that tire. You should lean more. And I'm like, there's nowhere to lean between here and Tampa, and that's where the bike goes twice a year.
Yeah,
It goes between here
yeah,
and Tampa. It's gone from here to Texas. It's gone from here to Gulfport. It's gone from here to Iowa, and those are pretty straight roads. If you do get into the mountains, there's long sweeping turns, which I love long sweeping turns at about 80, 90 miles an hour. Just feel great.
yeah.
The tight turns, like in Arkansas, I got 9,000 miles out of this tire. The last tire on there, or the tire before last, I only got 3,000 miles out of it because I took it to Eureka Springs. And that road from
Yeah.
going from Ozark up to Eureka Springs will eat a tire to pieces. I just shredded it.
Oh yeah, I know. I am very familiar with that road. My parents' property where they built their retirement home. Now, granted, it's dirt road, but from where their house is, it's about 20 minutes, and boop, it puts you out right there on the pig trail, about 5 miles north of Ozark.
All right.
Let's see here.
You have
Laura
a question?
Carpenter, what would be my last meal? I don't know. Probably something with bacon. Yeah, yeah, definitely something with bacon in it. Sorry, lifelong carnivore. That's just what it is. I said what I said.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Should love bacon. Bacon is the food of life. Manna from the gods.
Yes,
All right. So, what bike
absolutely.
what bike platform do you think is the most reliable?
None of them. Truthfully, none of them. Because you can take two motorcycles, build them as identically as possible, give them to two different people, and they will both have a different failure rate. And that's largely due to maintenance, riding habits, how somebody, you know, how somebody rides, how somebody shifts, how somebody brakes. Um, it's now granted, don't get me wrong, everybody builds a turd, okay? I'm Suzuki RE5, I'm looking at you right now. But there's literally thousands of 1,500 gold wings out there that have eclipsed the 250,000 mile mark. God knows how many Harleys have rolled over the 100,000 mile mark. My Roadstar, the Bastard Glide, just spitballing it from dead reckoning from my normal commuting because my speedometer cramped on me about 6 months ago. I've probably got around the 115,000 mile mark on that bike at this point in time. And it's still on the original drive belt from 2006. I even doubled down on the stupid on that because when I put the Harley wheels on there, I had to shave the drive belt down 7 millimeters because the Harley pulley is skinnier than the Yamaha pulley. And me being the cheap ass that I am, I'm like, well, I don't want to buy a belt, so I'll just make this one thinner. So far, it ain't been a problem. It's been on there for 35 odd thousand miles now at this point. So yeah, but a lot of it's how you maintain your stuff. We see guys here in the shop all the time. I had an interaction with a customer today. I told him, well, I've got to fix the starter on your bike before I can tell you whether or not we're going to have to pull the carbs off and clean it. He's like, well, y'all just did that a couple of years ago. And I pulled up his history. And the last time we had his bike in there, we cleaned carbs on it. But this was in 2019. And he just got done telling me that he hasn't, started the bike in a year and a half. And that doesn't work. It doesn't work this way. So, you get people like that. And then on the flip side, you get people that, maintain their stuff. They, and sometimes you'll have people that maintain their stuff to death. I mean, they'll wear out fasteners from service and things exactly by the book. They'll follow the Bible, and it's extremes in any direction you look. Uh, it's kind of hard to pin it down and blame it solely on the motorcycle. You got the human element in there, and there's just too much of a variable.
Okay. Fair answer. Shelby had a question. What are your thoughts on lane splitting?
I see the benefit of it. I see the merit of it. But me personally, I won't do it because you've got too many wing nuts that are stuck in a car. They've got their head plugged into their phone. They're balancing a Starbucks double shot espresso latte, whatever in the hell, with one hand. They're driving with one knee. They're reaching over here with their pinky toe, trying to adjust the air conditioner. And at the same time, they're screaming at their kids in the back seat, telling them, shut up and do their, ballet homework or whatever. And, obviously, there's this thing called turn signals. It's a foreign concept to so many people, and they'll just yoink off right to another lane right in front of you. It's a gamble, dude. I mean, it's a big gamble.
Yeah, I am for lane splitting. Oh, man, that is a big gamble. And I am for filtering. But so where I live in Memphis and in the northern Mississippi, it's not against the law, but there's also not a law for it. So if you're doing it, they won't really stop you. But if you're doing it and it's unsafe, then they can give you a ticket for being an unsafe driver or creating a hazard.
Yeah,
So if somebody decides to open a door
yeah,
on you and you hit them, that's your fault. So it's
yeah. Well, the thing is,
weird
like
touchy
what you're
thing.
talking about, lane splitting versus lane filtering. In my brain, that's two different things there. Now,
Oh,
like
it is.
everybody
Right.
thinks, oh, lane splitting, that means I can do 70 mile an hour in a 60 mile an hour zone and zoom in between these cars, and that's not the way it works. I mean, you're begging for disaster doing that. Now, if you're stuck in nuts to butts gridlock traffic and you're creeping along at 3 mile an hour, yeah, slide up in between them, but man, if you're doing more than 15, 20 mile an hour, just ride it out, stay in your lane, keep on rolling
Yeah,
because
I think even in
anything
California,
past that,
I think it's written you can only go.
uh,
Even in California, it's only written you can go. I think 10 miles difference in the speed that the other cars are going. You can't. You still can't fly by them. If they're going 30, you can't fly by them at 70 just because the speed limit is 70. You still have to be within 10 miles of the cars that are moving. So, and I don't think
yeah.
people
But
understand
then
that.
again, you have that human element in there where everybody they hear it's selective hearing. They hear the part, oh, I can go in between, and then the details that gets cast aside.
Yeah, I'm that guy that if there's a gridlock, I'll sit where I am in the car and pretend I'm in a car and a motorcycle because that's the safest thing to do. And I've seen guys fly up on the shoulder and all of a sudden run into either debris, a stopped car, or a cop car who's there waiting for them. I did that in one of my videos here a while
Yep.
back. I was coming from Nashville, actually trying to get back into Memphis, and cars were stopped. A guy flew up on the shoulder on a motorcycle, and the cop stopped him when he got up to where the instruction was. Because guess what? It's illegal if they
Yep.
say it's illegal here, and he did. Laura had another question. If you won the lottery today, what would you buy?
Pay off my house, pay off my debts. That way, I don't have anything to worry about because the future's not guaranteed. Nothing is set in stone, and the thought that I am leaving behind baggage, so to speak, for my wife or my kids to have to deal with whenever I'm gone, that don't sit good with me. And if I hit a good scratch off tomorrow, yeah, I would be debt free first and foremost before anything else. Past that, well, my wife knows that there's two places that she really don't need to take me. Number one, that's motorcycle swap meet. Number two, that's a gun store. But hey, everybody's got their hobbies, right?
Oh, my wife, she does this gambling thing where she'll let me loose inside Harbor Freight by myself every once in a while, and that's a gamble.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
Journey of Jerry, I didn't see come in.
My
Welcome in.
my biggest fear is one of these days I'm going to kick off and all my stuff that's out here in the garage. My wife is going to sell that for what I told her I paid.
My wife actually buys my stuff for me. So, well, no, not the Harbor Freight stuff, but all right. Looking through for questions really quick. Go ahead and throw me some more questions in the comments here. All right. So, all right, Joe. Um, if you could ride anywhere in the world today, starting anywhere, going anywhere, on any bike you wanted to be on, where would it be? What bike would you ride?
Well, I'm digging back into my childhood here a little bit, but I know it would never happen. I know this for a fact, but uh, a lot of you guys probably didn't follow GP racing before it became MotoGP. But this is actually a conversation we were having earlier today at work. But this is back when riders were riders and they were riding a mechanical device, and you know the old 500cc two strokes, and they were a beast. And if I ever had the chance to ride Wayne Rainey's championship bike from, the 90 or 91 season, that would be like, okay, we're good here. It ain't getting any better because, you know, Wayne Rainey, number three, Dale Earnhardt Sr., number three. You see the parallel here? That those were my go-to guys
I'm
whenever I
seeing
was a
it.
kid. Uh, Kevin Schwantz, Mick Dewitt, they were right up there. But man, Rainey was always my guy. That's the one that I was always watching, and I would watch replays of races back to back to back to back. Just it seeing the way the guy could move a motorcycle around and the way he could put body English on a motorcycle, that's something that stuck with me. And it's just like, damn, how did he do that? And I would watch that shit over and over, be like, okay, I see how he's shifting his weight around. I see where his head's, I think I got an idea what's going on in his brain right.
Sounds that way with
But
Kenny
yeah, man,
Roberts.
yeah,
Back
yeah,
when Kenny
King
Roberts rode the
Kenny,
big yellow
and
monster.
yep, Kenny's TZ 750 that he won Daytona with. I have actually heard that bike run just standing next to the thing, and it's like, excuse me, I need some private time now.
I remember interviews where other riders were saying that they tried to ride that bike and wouldn't dare. Only Kenny Roberts could ride that bike. And it's,
Yeah, yeah,
and again, that's a bike that you come to, and this is Kenny's words. That's a bike you come to terms with. You don't ride that bike. You come to terms with it, and the bike lets you ride it. A lot like
yeah. It's
Matt
like
records.
you don't figure this out. You're allowed. That's the difference.
Kicking back in the Wayback Machine. Have you inspired anyone to ride or wrench on their own bikes? Obviously, a lot of people now that you've started your channel. But who
Yeah, well,
personally?
there is that. I mean, I've helped people out along the way. I've helped people. I've helped several people throughout the years, learn just basic riding, basic mechanical skills. Uh, I would like to think that some of them stuck, but inspired is a pretty strong word, and I don't know if that's really applicable to me because the thing is, truthfully, at the end of the day, man, I ain't nobody special. I'm some dude that I'm blessed enough to be able to do what I enjoy and be able to make a living at it. But as far as inspiring somebody, I don't know if I'd use that word to describe it.
I would.
I've opened the eyes of people to just how much fun this sport can be. But I don't think I've ever created one of these situations where somebody gets that look of epiphany, and then you hear the choir come up in the background, and then birds chirp, Disney ending, all that.
I'm sure you have because you have much more reach than I have. I get comments on my videos just from doing my oil change on the BMW or just doing, changing the headlight on the Harley or putting, you know, the front fog lights on the Harley. People go, I didn't know you could do it like that. Or I didn't know that's how you did it. You inspired me to go do it myself. Especially on the BMW, I think that was like an epiphany for me. It
Well,
was the BMW tells you you can't do
with a
it,
lot of
and I did
the
it.
yeah, exactly. Uh, with a lot of the information that I put out on my channel, I there's times I'll be completely honest with you. There's times I just absolutely ignore what a service manual says because looking at it, working it out in my head, and especially on something where I've done multiple times in the past, it's like, okay, book says this. I figured out a way that's a lot easier. It's a lot less bullshit. And I've done this enough times that I've proven not only to myself, but to other people, this is a viable method and it works. So here, take this into consideration because it'll save you 1, 2, 3 hours worth of time. And you're not having to buy, fancy widget A specialty tool that may cost you $150 that you may only use once in your lifetime. So that's the way I try to present things to people.
I've learned. I've been working on bikes since I was 15, and just from watching you work on some bikes and doing stuff, you learn those. And it's not like these major things you learn; it's the little tricks that make things easier. And that's what I like to
Yes,
go for.
it's the little tidbit stuff here and there that makes a big difference. Uh, I, I, excuse me, long time ago, I had an old man. He showed me. He's like, "Hey, show you what you can do with this hammer." And because I was, this is when I was still working at Napa. And I was young. I mean, I was probably 22, 23, something like that. You know, and I watched him take two hammers. He sets one on one side of a ball joint, takes one, lines it up, never swings this hammer. He just holds it there. Tap, 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 bang, bam, ball joints out. And I'd been wailing on this thing for 10 minutes with the damn pickle fork trying to get the thing to pop out. And it's like, how? And then he explained it to me. It's how the shock gets transmitted through it. And that's what popped it out. And I'm like, bing, light bulb moment. So it's stuff like that that sticks with you. It's not just seeing something done, it's understanding the reasoning behind it. That's what makes a big difference. That's what gets the wheels in your head turning and you start thinking a little bit outside of the box.
There's an old joke, and I'm sure you've heard it before. All mechanics have heard this joke. There's this giant diesel engine on a ship that they've been working on for weeks, couldn't get it to work. They hire this guy. He charges them $10,000 to go down to fix it. He walks down, walks around the engine, taps on it with a hammer, and says, "Try it now," and it cranks right up. And they're
Yeah,
like, "Well, we're not going to pay you $10,000 for that for working for 5 minutes." He goes, "You didn't pay for my 5 minutes. You paid for the 30 years that I had to learn to find out where to hit it." And it's sometimes it doesn't matter.
exactly.
You don't have to understand the science sometimes, just to understand things work, and they only work a certain way.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see if we have
Well,
another question.
that's like I constantly have to go through the motions with breaking this down to customers because they'll come in and they'll ask me, "Hey, can you synchronize my carburetors?" Yeah, but before we do that, how many miles do you have on your bike? And they'll tell me. The thing is, people don't realize it's a hip bone connected to the leg bone scenario because if you've got valves that are out of spec, that actually affects the cam timing in your bike. And that will affect how much vacuum each cylinder can produce. Well, that's what you're keying off of when you balance carburetors. And that's also going to affect how the idle mixture sets to, make the idle smooth, make it responsive, make it crisp. So you've got this, this. It's all got to line up and be functionally happy with one another to get you to your endpoint where you want to be. And there's a lot of times you got to break out the crayons because some people they can't make that connection.
Yep, agreed. We're back to this question. If you could tell a new rider one thing that you had to learn the hard way, what would it be?
Hmm. When you think you tried off, but yeah, when you think you tried on enough helmets and enough pair of gloves that's in your budget or in your price range, go try on some more because if you're looking at something based solely on price, like, okay, I don't want to spend more than $100 on this pair of gloves. Okay, there's plenty of options out there for that kind of budget range. But do yourself a favor. Look a little bit outside of it, just where you've got something to compare it to, some kind of a benchmark, because a lot of times that may open your eyes to certain things that you hadn't really thought about before, or something that you hadn't, even considered before. Uh, and that's not just, I'm just using gloves and helmets as an example. It's not just, apparel or whatever. Look at it like that from, a motorcycle purchase. If you're thinking about changing tires, consider your options, shop around. Uh, Accessories, performance modifiers, things like that. What's this going to do for me to get the result that I want versus what's it worth to me to get that? And can I do that at a lower price point without compromising longevity or dependability? So you got to think big picture.
Yeah. The guy, Steve from Indy Ridge, likes to say all the time. He says, "I can make $100 boot, but you'll get $100 boot. If you want what I put in this boot, then you'll pay what it takes me that I think it takes to make this boot." And it's a mid price
Yeah,
boot. It's less than $200, but I've heard people say about the boot, "Well, I could go to Walmart and get a boot for $70 and be happy with it." It's like, Well, you're buying a $70 boot then. Does it have the armor? Is it waterproof? Is it comfortable? Can you walk all day in it? That's what you're paying for. You're not paying for a boot to put on your foot. You're paying for what you're going to get out of that boot. Gloves, helmet, same thing. It has to be comfortable and serviceable, or you'll never wear it. It doesn't matter what the cost is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's funny that you make that analogy because I had one of my subscribers ask me what kind of boots I was wearing in one of my videos here recently, and being totally honest with everybody, I buy cheap ass $45 work boots from Walmart. That's except for a pair of flip flops. That's pretty much what I wear 24/7. Those are my work boots. Those are my tennis shoes. Those are my riding boots. And I got 3 pairs of them. I rotate them around because, no, they ain't waterproof. Hell, they got water drains in the bottom of it because they know they're going to get full of water. But the thing is, the way they fit, the way they feel, and my personal comfort level, they're a good riding boot. They're comfortable for walking in. I can stand around on concrete in them all day long without beating my feet up. I've got a bum ankle, so I can cinch them up and give my ankle a little bit of support if I'm having a bad day. But that works for me and solely for me. Now, it kind of goes back to the whole opinions or, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the rest of it. But that works for me. And it ultimately it's up to everybody to figure out what works for them. Now, these boots don't have any kind of armor. They're not meant to be a motorcycle specific riding boot. But let's be real here. Cheap Walmart, tactical, pair of boots that I wear as work boots because number one, I'm hard on shoes. Always have been. Number two, doing the kind of work I do, it beats your shoes up and you wear them out pretty quick. Number three, I'm a cheap ass. So you got a lot of variables there.
It,
But like I
it, yeah,
said, it works for me.
yeah, it comes back to you have to be comfortable in it and comfortable enough to wear it. So people beat me up all the time about my
Yes.
helmets. I get a helmet that costs me $150 because I've actually tried on these. So what was somebody was trying to get me to get the LS2s, and you need to get this helmet and that helmet, and I tried them on. Didn't like them. Went to Cycle Gear, tried out a bunch of helmets that cost 250, 350. I didn't like them. They weren't comfortable to me. I am comfortable in people were making fun of my One Storm helmet, but that's $100 helmet that was comfortable for me. It would last about a year, year and a half, and then when it got stinky on the inside, I'd trade it out and get another one. I don't think I would probably be willing to give up a $450 helmet if it got stinky because I want to get my money out of it. But the helmet, I've had a crash in that helmet before, and it did great, didn't kill me. So yeah, you got to do you got to use what's comfortable for you. Same thing with the gear. I would love to wear in the winter. I do wear a jacket, but that doesn't make any sense when I go down to Florida because it's 100 degrees. I'm not going to wear a jacket. And I've seen people do that, and they were miserable.
Yeah.
If you're miserable on the bike, you're not going to wear the gear. So get the gear that works for you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
And
still want
not
to.
only that, to kind of expand on that, if you're uncomfortable in your gear, and if you're thinking in your head, man, this sucks, I'm getting ass burn, my hands are half numb. Not only is that making you uncomfortable, it's distracting you, and that's keeping your head away from what it needs to be paying attention to, and that's all the idiots around you that's trying to kill you.
Yeah, yep. And that's why I wear a modular. I don't wear a full helmet because a modular you can pop it open and breathe. You can't do it in full. And I learned the hard way when I broke the helmet on the way back from Iowa, and I couldn't put my face shield up, and I couldn't pop the front because it was one. It was probably the first full face helmet I've had that wasn't modular in probably 4 years.
Yeah.
And I remembered why I hated this helmet so much now because it wasn't for me. I get claustrophobic in the helmet. I need to open it up and breathe and drink out of a cup. I do want to
Well,
get
to be
you.
honest with you,
Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, to be honest with you, I rode an open face helmet for, I mean, now let me back up a little bit. I wore a full face helmet depending on what bike I was riding and what time of year it was, whenever I was still living up north. But ever since I've been down here in Florida, I had worn an open face helmet for the last 6.5, 7 years. And I had an incident a little over a year ago on a customer's bike where I was test riding a bike and, totally unrelated to what they had brought the bike in for. They brought the bike in because carburetors were stopped up. The bike had been sitting for a long time. So I did carbs on this thing, and the bike was in very good cosmetic shape. You could tell it had just been parked out in the back 40, but I wasn't aware, the customer wasn't aware it had a brake line failure, and it was dual disc, and one of the brake lines going down to the front wheel, it had a blockage in it. So I go to take a test ride. I'm doing 25, maybe 30 mile an hour at the most, about call it a quarter mile up the road from the shop. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boom, front wheel locks up instantly with no warning whatsoever. And, I wound up with a busted collarbone, a bunch of busted ribs out of the deal. I mean, I had like 9 rib fractures, but, you know, the helmet did its job. I didn't have any facial injuries, but it gets you to thinking because if you look at my helmet, all through here, right around the eye port, this was rashed all around here, and it was relatively slow speed crash, but still, that could have been real bad, real quick if I'd had my head turned to the left just a little bit more than what I did. So, I went back to wearing a full face helmet. Um, I just recently bought a modular helmet for the first time. I'm gonna take a stab at that and see what that does for me, but you know, that was kind of a wake up call. I needed to put the old 3/4 helmet up on the shelf and walk away from it because it wasn't doing the job that I thought that it was doing. It left a little bit too much open and exposed for my comfort level at that.
I do want to get you I know a guy. I want to get you in a pair of Indy Ridge boots. So after this is over, we'll talk to you a little bit. They're free. If you don't like them, you don't have to wear them. But let me get you a pair just see if you like them.
All right, sounds like a deal, brother. I appreciate that. But just to give you a heads up in case you're kind of curious or if you want one for a spare, this isn't a plug for Parts Unlimited or anything like that. But right now, Parts Unlimited has the AFX FX111 modular helmets on closeout, and you can score a pretty good deal on those things, man. They're blowing them out for like $100 a pop, and they're comfy. I've worn AFX helmets for a little over 10 years now, and they've always had good ventilation, good angle of, or good field of view, rather. A little bit of wind noise here and there, but the helmet that I'm currently wearing right now, it's actually meant to be a dual sport helmet. It's got the peak over the body of the helmet and everything. But the air channels inside underneath the liner on this modular, they are huge, man. This thing's going to move some air, and it'll keep your noodle breathing,
Yeah.
even during the heat of sun. The fact that it's modular, that just gives you more versatility to it there. So
Yeah. It's got
I'm gonna
it's
try it out, see what it does. But if you're on the fence about it, it's a good way to take a stab at it and see if it worked for you.
it's just got it's the help like the GMA said. It's hard to be safe if you're miserable. And I spend a lot of time in that helmet, so
Yes.
it's got to be safe, or you just you won't wear it correctly, or you won't wear it at all.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, not only is it uncomfortable after a point, it gets to be a distraction because it's eating up some of the processing power that your noodle requires to keep you healthy from all the other people around you.
Yeah. All right. Question from the Peanut Gallery. What is one thing people may not know about you?
Well, let's see here. Um, well, most people aren't aware, but I attended a Christian academy until 5th grade because my folks thought that that was something that I needed in my life, and
You need Jesus.
I got tired of being trashed for being the poor country boy and everything from everybody else that was showing up. And folks were dropping them off in a BMW or a Benz, and I was miserable my first 5 years at grade school. I mean, miserable. And you can really, you see a lot of ugliness in the world, but man, whenever you're a kid, you see it that much more prevalent and you see it that much more clearly. And I just that wasn't for me.
I
But
always,
people hear that and they look at me, they watch my videos or they talk to me when they come into the shop and everything, and all of a sudden they hear that they're like, "What? No, no way."
I always say, kids are ruthless because they're taught by their parents, but they're not
Yes,
taught tact at that young age. So they'll say the same things their parents are
yeah,
saying, but then not have a filter. So it's not much I remember. If you see a kid that's rotten, it's because the parents rotten too and just didn't teach them right. And that's a horrible thing in our society today. But I was taught to, where I grew up in Texas, you had poor people, and then you had a few people that had money, and we weren't divided by
Yep.
race or we weren't divided by nationality. We were divided by money. So all the poor people lived on one side. We didn't have like a black side and a white side and Mexican side. We had the poor side and the well-off side. So I learned real young. That's color don't matter, nationality don't matter, height, weight, whatever, that don't matter. Um, the big divider is money. But
Brody,
kids teach that.
shut up. Brody. I'm sorry, Brody the Wonder Mutt decided that he needed to save the world by barking at the cat.
Yeah, my cat now is clawing on me. She wants attention. She never wants to around me unless I'm doing something. She just needs all the attention. All right, if you could buy any bike right now, what would it be?
I wouldn't really narrow it down to one bike in particular, but give me say give me say a $15,000 working budget at where I can accumulate parts and pieces. And you're probably going to see a really bizarre assemblage of shovelhead, Evo, and softail parts. Either that, or we'll just go full potato with it. We'll find an old iron head Sportster, build a shovester out of it, where we put a shovel head top in on an iron head bottom. Then we'll chop the primary and the transmission off of it, make it a divorce shovester, and we'll tie it together with a late model 6 speed. And yeah, just because I can, and because it's a cool ass motor to build.
I have a question I've never asked anybody, and I'll ask you because you're you. Of all the BYOB bikes, so build your own bikes, like the Big Dogs and the Excelsiors and the Sucker Punch Sallies, of all those type of bikes that you build yourself in a kit, what would be one that you would want to get and build for yourself?
Not a damn one of them. I'll tell you that right now, because the kit bikes from V Twin Enterprises, the bike in a box that used to come from Custom Chrome, back when the credit card chopper thing was just running rampant. Uh, you know the stuff from Pro One. Now, granted, Pro One builds some really nice parts, but they've got to make parts at a price point. So the quality and the finish of that stuff went down on a lot of their bike kits. Um, I wouldn't want a single one of them, to be totally honest with you.
I wanted the Exile bulldozer for the longest time. Um, in fact, they used to sell a kit that was $10,000. And being a mechanic, it's a basic bike, basic engine, basic frame, rolling chassis. And I knew what I wanted to do with it. But then one day, all of a sudden, he got popular, and they went from being $10,000 for the kit to being $30,000 for the kit. I was like, well, I guess that's not for me now.
Yeah.
So, but that was my dream for the longest time.
I don't remember who was making it. I don't remember the name of the manufacturer, but uh, there was a company, and it was a small mom and pop's company, but they sold a rolling chassis kit that used a Evo Sportster motor, but it was basically a baby V rod. It had like a 200 or a 240 tire on the back of it. It was a swing arm suspension, but it came, with a uh, box section welded aluminum swing arm. It had the lines of the V rod, but it used a Evo Sportster motor for a power plant. But the rest of it looked pretty damn nice. And if I recall, they weren't terribly expensive. Back then they were bringing, and of course this is like in 2010 dollars, but back then they were bringing, I think 4,800, maybe 5 grand for a roller that came with, naked tank and fenders, rolling stock and suspension on it. I mean, it was pretty neat little setup. It's just it's kind of sad that it didn't gain any more traction than what it did because it seemed like they weren't around for very long. But the build quality on them was actually really nice. I saw a couple of them that people had built out, finished out, and it made for a really unique looking custom.
Yeah, I really wanted Sucker Punch used to have one called the Working Man Special that was, like you say, a bike in the box. And then the company went belly up because their president or their CEO, whoever, was basically selling more bikes than he actually planned on getting out the door. And he would complete tickets and never actually send the bikes out. And then when enough people figured out that's what he was doing, and they weren't getting lost in shipment, he went to jail. And they sold the company. And by that time, the company had a bad name, and it didn't matter who was running the company. You know, the under new management sign didn't help him out at all. So I don't know if they're even still in business anymore, but I went on their website and it hadn't changed in probably 5 years. So I'm thinking that the company went out of business.
Yeah. Yeah, just somebody probably paid for X amount of years worth of server space for hosting a website in advance because they got a good price on it. It's one of those things where it's just going to hang out there and basically catch, digital dust until the meter expires, so to speak.
Yeah. Jerry wants to know your opinion of the Rev Max motor.
Outside of being really rattly sounding, can't tell you nothing on that, brother, because I haven't looked inside of one of them. Honestly, I haven't ridden one of them. Uh, I think Harley borrowed a lot of the most basic of groundwork on that motor from the Indian Scout, which actually India didn't develop at all. It was a Victory Octane, and the Octane was a 1 year wonder. And the Octane ran a hell of a lot better than Scout ever did because it had a lot more aggressive cam profile in it. And of course, there's being Polaris, whenever they decided we're going to pull the plug on Indian or pull the plug on Victory and call everything an Indian, they changed the wheels, they put lamer cams in them, and they slapped a bunch of Indian logos on it. They called it a Scout. And I think that the Rev Max has got a lot of potential to it. I mean, you look at what it's done on the racetrack. I mean, there's absolutely potential there. But what's the longevity of this thing going to be? What kind of pattern failures are we going to see on this thing, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road from now? Is it going to be like the cam chain tensioners and the twin cams when they first come out? Is it going to be a plague of either do this every 30,000 miles or rebuild your motor? Is it going to fall into that category?
Yeah, I had a Victory Gunner, and I love that bike. And so I thought when they closed it, they would have an Indian that was close to it. Nothing even close to it. The Vegas, the 8 ball, and the hammer, there's nothing like it the Indian makes. And I thought for sure they would, but yeah.
Well, see, when Polaris had always, been a controlling interest in Victory, from not day one, but very shortly thereafter. And when Polaris bought the rights to the Indian brand name, they they dusted off a lot of stuff that they had in pre-development for Victory, like the Indian Challenger motor. They're like, new cutting edge, liquid cool, double overhead cam, blah 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 blah. Well, the thing is, that motor actually was developed back in, you know, late 2010 to early 2012 in that time span there, because that was meant to be the Gen 2 version of the Victory Vision. And it just never materialized because the bait counters pulled the plug on the update for the Victory Vision. So they've got this completely developed power plant and drivetrain sitting there. They've already got all the tooling set up for it for the most part. So, okay, yeah, let's dust off an old design that the public hasn't seen and we'll call it an Indian. I mean, corporate recycling. What else can you say?
I was looking for a V92C for the longest time because that used to be one of my dream bikes. And when Victory went under, you can't find those anywhere now. Even though it was the motor overheated, it probably didn't put out a lot of power, but it just looked so cool. But you can't. Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody thinks they're made out of gold now. You can't find one anywhere that's for sale. And if you do, it might be on marketplace for a day and then it's gone. Somebody is sucking those all up. But it ain't me. Okay. We got any more questions? I'm skipping over the crowd. I don't mean to.
see Gma here asking about her M8, saying she loves her M8, but the factory tune's got a big flat spot in it. Um, I was looking at the tune file on an M8 that we had to work a while back, and the way they've got the tune file put together on a factory tune, there's a lot of room for improvement. There's a lot of room for growth there. And I think the biggest reason why the factory M8 bikes have that flat spot and exhibit that characteristic is I think the biggest reason why they do that is because Harley had to take so much fuel out of them at that point to get them to pass emission standards to where they could, keep from getting their hands smacked by the EPA. Uh, it's basically, emissions reasons why those bikes have that.
Yeah, they'll tune it for the public and just expect you to do your own thing to it when you get it. I mean, you look at a lot of exhaust that they sell.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, Honda does the same thing. You'll see these what do you call them? The bikes that they plan on making, and they'll show them to you. And they got this cool exhaust, they got this cool intake, but they can't sell it to you like that because it doesn't pass EPA standards. So they'll put this giant tin can on it, sell it to you, knowing you're going to look for that muffler and that intake that they had on the bike originally. And coincidentally, they have it for sale on their website.
Yeah, funny how that works out, isn't it? Dial the calendar back a couple of decades here. Remember when the Yamaha Warrior first showed up, and everybody's like, "Whoa, that thing looks awesome!" And then they showed up on the showroom floor, and everybody's like, "Whoa, it looks awesome!" And then they get around to the right rear corner of the bike, and they're like, "Whoa, it looks like somebody chromed a hot water tank and hung it off the side of the bike. Holy shit, that muffler's big."
The R18 was the same way. They put this, the prototype bikes had this awesome, cool little low profile muffler, and it was loud, and it looked really cool. And then when they went to the floor, it had this giant sci-fi. It looked like one of the engines off of the Star Trek, the Enterprise on it. And
Yeah.
but it was like, okay, easy enough to change out. And granted, they've been on the market for a while. They've developed better, cooler looking mufflers to put on them, but and exhaust cans. But those first ones that came out looked like a giant vacuum cleaner. It literally did look like an old Electrolux vacuum cleaner from like the 60s. But they're still cool though, and I still want one. I don't care what the exhaust looks like.
I'm waiting on one of these days for somebody to probably one of and I can put on a Victory Vision. It's going to be one of the old Arlen S versions that had the Trapper Keeper paint scheme and the billet wheels and all that stuff. And they're going to have a thunderheader hanging on the side of that thing.
Laura, I'm getting your questions. They're further down in my little list that I've already got. So, what bike would you want to ride just once, knowing you could never afford it or ride it again? And when I say you can never ride it again, it's either because you ride it once and be careful the first time, and the second time you get on it, you would probably not be so careful and maybe not survive the trip. So we already talked about.
Well, we already talked about Wayne Rainey's bike, so that's out. Oh man, I tell you what, though, one thing that I would like to get a hold of one of these days, and I know it's possible from a gray market import standpoint, but the Canadians got some really cool stuff back in the 80s and the 90s. They had street legal two strokes a lot longer up there than we did down here. Like Yamaha made the RZ 500V. It was the aluminum frame version of the RZ 500 that we got down here. Square four, 500cc, two stroke, twin cranks, counter rotating, because gearhead nerd, that's me. But the the man, if I had to pin it down to one, uh, if I had to pin it down to one, where it would be a one shot wonder, no chance of a repeat or anything like that. I gotta say, and it's going to sound probably a little cliche here, but it'd have to be Burt Monroe's Indian Scout. The one that he set the Bonneville records with, because not only the amount of innovation that this man had in this bike, but the amount of effort and the amount of blood, sweat, and tears this man literally poured into that bike. that's a measure of respect because coming from my background and what what courses I took in school, college, all that. And I was never the best student in high school. I'll tell you that right now. Seeing what that man was able to do and how he was able to develop all this on his own without any access to CAD, without any access to the internet, without hell, basically not even having access to a calculator. I mean, what the man had available to him was a hammer, a forge, a way to melt aluminum, and he had a number two pencil and a piece of paper, and he built it out from there. I mean, that would be the ultimate. Hey, thank you, sir, for you know pushing the limit and showing us what can be done. That would be a cool one right there.
Okay. Yeah, it's like the first guy that decided if you file down the sear latch, you can make an automatic rifle out of anything. Okay, what is your toxic trait? You just got that.
Um, let let's just say that a very large portion of my garage here is devoted to the shooting sports, and we'll walk away from it at that point.
Mad Yankee guessed that when you said that you would tell your wife that tell her the actual price of things. But yeah, we won't talk about that. All right, what's the one thing that you will
Yeah, we're not.
never take a road trip without?
Man, it's gonna sound kind of lame, but my pocket knife. And everybody knows me. They ask me, why do you carry two pocket knives? Well, I've got one that's a beater, and it's been used as everything from a box opener to a pry bar to a screwdriver to yeah, whatever. Insert purpose here because it's a beater and it's dull, it's chipped up. Uh, Blade's about an inch shorter than what it used to be, just because I've broke the tip off a couple times and reground it, and then I keep the sharp one, and that's for important things. That's for what a knife gets used for. But that gives me the versatility to where pretty much anything that I'm having to deal with, I'm covered. I'm good. And plus, with what I keep on my bike, uh, my tool roll that I keep on the roadie with me, I've got enough stuff in there specifically for that bike to where, if need be, and the situation warranted it, I could literally pull the motor out of that thing on the side of the road if I had to. I'm not saying I want to, but if I had to, and I was just absolutely desperate with my back against the wall, it's something I could do. And it really doesn't take up a whole lot of space, Nate. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a cheap $10 tool roll from Walmart, and the rest of it, I just filled it in with the bits and pieces that I found that I needed, and I found that were usable to me.
Yep. My 77 BMW had a 7-piece toolkit that you literally could do everything on. It had opposed jugs. So literally anything you wanted to do, you could do on the side of the road with that 7-piece kit. It even had a coil
Yeah,
for recompressing your piston springs or your rings. So yeah, and that's why
yeah,
I laugh when people say, "Oh, you can't work on BMWs." It's like, no, BMW wants you to work on the bike. The dealer does not want you to work on the bike, um, and that's always baffled me. Um, one of the
yeah.
things,
There's a very different train of thought there between the company and the dealership.
that people always tell me you can't do. So the BMW, mine, it has a main drain plug, and then up inside that, it has a top drain plug. So the top one is to make all of your rings get hotter and all your valves get hotter before the oil drips down into the main. So that way your rings and everything heats up first, and all your seals heat up. But the bike more quickly can run better without really getting all of the oil
Right?
hot at one time.
Uh,
So that one's got a little small plug. People said you can't pull that plug. You have to have a special tool to pull it out. And it's like, no, you need a 5 millimeter Allen. That's all you need. No, but if you drop it off inside
yeah,
the pan, you'll never get it out. So I actually had you on one video drop it off inside the plug and just rock the bike until it fell out the main hole. I'm like, this is not this is not an undoable thing. And that's the way BMW made it, where if you did drop it off in there, the engineers at BMW, absolutely insane. The Germans, again, we all know the Germans lost the war with tanks because they kept trying to build a better tank. Instead of trying to build more tanks like we did, they just kept trying to build better tanks. But they're made again in the German, German cars are the same way. They want you to work on the bike. They want you to work on the cars. But yeah, the dealer, no, that they lose money if you do that. So
Exactly. But like most people are totally mind blown whenever they see this. But you know, again, let's kind of take a step back a little bit. The original GL 1000 when they came out, 75, 76, whatever it was, the GL 1000 before it made the jump to GL 1100, I think it was in 80, if I remember right. Most people are totally mind blown that those things have a Kickstarter. They have no idea, but there's a damn Kickstarter on that thing. And actually, I think it was just the first 2 years of the GL 1000. So it'd be, I think it was 76 and 77. But they're out there. They exist and they work.
yeah, I've seen people make some really crazy sport bikes out of those early GLs. There's one I want to say
Yeah.
it's in Alabama. He has a GL 1100 that he made into a sport bike, very custom looking. And of course, we all know the early Goldwings were actually sport bikes, and then they were so comfortable to ride, people started packing them out and putting gear on them. The Hayabusa was originally supposed to be a touring bike, and you can still find kits to put a touring kit on Hayabusas, and people that have done that say they're the most comfortable touring bike they've ever owned because they're lush. So you can still find
Yeah.
trunks and bags for the Hayabusas, not just stretch arms, not just stretch axle kits. It's just
Yeah.
very comfortable bike, and I'd love to get one.
Yeah. Well, look at the ZX14 before the Concourse, officially came out, or the 1400 Concourse rather. You know, the Corbin made bank selling, their fiberglass bags and stuff like that for them. A lot of people, they started doing, long distance sport touring on ZX14 well before the Concourse 14 ever came out on the market. And then all of a sudden, right out of the box, Kawasaki's like, you know what? We're going to build a ZX14, but we're going to put saddlebags on it. We're going to give it some electrical sparkles, and we're going to give it a windscreen that catches the air a little bit better than what the ZX did. And we're going to sell a ton of it. And they have.
Yeah, they're cool bikes. Okay, what is your favorite motorcycle from a movie or TV series?
Hmm. Dating myself here. If any of y'all have ever seen the movie Megaforce, yes, it's B-rate and cheesy, but 10, 11, 12-year-old me saw that and was like, it's got missiles. That's awesome. But the the bike that Mickey Rourke rode in Harley Davidson, the Marlboro Man, that's kind of what got me, you know, dialed in on custom Harleys, back when I was in, you know, junior high and high school, because I was like, damn, that looks cool. I like that.
When they were in that movie, I thought it was funny when they shot uh, Don Johnson's bike, and I'm like, you literally could shoot it 5 more times. That bike will keep running. Why? That's a great bike. Why you? But they were again that movie
I
was very
know, and
leaned toward Harley, but I was like, that's a
oh
great
yeah,
bike. You wouldn't have no problem with that bike anyway. But yeah, too funny.
but yeah, like I said, Megaforce was so high on the cheeseometer. It's a motorcycle. It's got missiles. It flies. What's not to love?
Oh, I was the same way with what was his name, Rex Smith in Street Hawk. It was a this
Oh yeah,
it was a
yeah,
Nighthawk, very simple bike. I didn't know that. It was a cool bike. They had lasers and machine guns, and he could jump it out of a second story window every time he wanted to launch it. So I was in love with that bike, not knowing it was basically just a plain simple little standard bike, but not to 8-year-old me. I
yeah,
thought the bike was cool.
yeah. I vaguely remember Street Hawk, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I didn't get into Street Hawk all that much. When Street Hawk was on the air, that, Street Hawk usually came on after Airwolf. And after Airwolf, I was like, oh, screw it. I just got done watching Airwolf, man. It can't get any cooler than that.
True story. Yep. You guys got your last. I got a couple more questions here, and you guys go ahead and go throw your questions in if you've got them. If I've missed your question, just throw it down again. All right, last question I have for you. Who would you like to ride with from the past or present? And where would you go? Laura, I'll get to your question next.
As far as that goes, it would never happen. And we don't have the ability to make it happen. But adult me would love to be able to pull a time machine out of my hip pocket to where I could go back to younger dumbass me, and me and dad take off and do a lot of the stuff that we talked about, because my dad my dad was always working doing something, be it driving a truck or doing odd jobs on the weekend or doing whatever had to be done around the house just where we could get by. And there's a lot of stuff that me and my dad talked about, and I don't I don't regret that we didn't get a chance to do that, but I wish that that's something that I could have shared with him, because there'd be times where we were sitting around talking, and you could tell that that was something that he wanted. That was something that, he had put a lot of thought into, but responsible adult took control and said, no, we've got to do this. And I wish that I had the opportunity to be like, hey, Dad, don't worry about it. Let's go do some stupid shit like we always talked about doing, and you actually enjoy it. Hang in there. Let's just go do it. Throw a damn dart at the map that's taped to the wall and just head that way. Yeah, it'd be that.
That'd be cool. It don't matter if it's doable or not. It's just something you'd like to do. And a lot of people have answered that question the same way. Because yeah, young dumb you didn't know what you know now and wouldn't appreciate it the same way.
Yeah. Well, for carpenter, uh, what's something that I'm proud of that I haven't been able to brag about? Well, for out of respect for their personal privacy, my daughter, my grandson, they've not been on camera, they've not been on the channel, and I'm totally fine with that, and I respect their wishes. Uh, my daughter, my son, my wife, I'm going to bend the rules a little bit here. I've bragged about it before. Damn it, I'm doing it again, because they're kids, and that's my wife. And my wife has the patience of a saint for putting up with my dumb bumpkin self for the last 27 years. And don't get me wrong, it's not always been, animal crackers and rainbows. There's been times we've knocked heads hard. But you know, she 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 can read me enough to know when she needs to approach me a certain way, and plus she can talk to me in a way that gets through my thick damn head whenever I'm tunnel visioned on one thing and I can't see the forest for the trees, and all of a sudden she'll be like, well, hey, did you ever think about blah blah blah? And I'm like, bam, instant moment of clarity. And she's good with that. It's almost creepy, but yeah, I'm gonna brag on my kids. Gonna brag on my wife, because that's my parents' prerogative. Okay, we're gonna roll with that.
That's awesome. Shelby's asking, would you rather take the Bastard Glide or Dad's Venture to Helen, Georgia?
going to be a hell of a fun ride. Uh, the the venture is going to start getting worked over here whenever we get done with a couple of them that are in front of it. But the venture's a hell of a lot of fun in the twisties. And the roadie, it's comfortable as hell. It's like driving your couch, so it'd be kind of a hard toss up between the two. Hey Jerry, just to let you know, if he don't, I will. Okay, brother.
Wife Una says she's waving
And
a
I've
finger at the
got my
TV.
beloved wife unit trash talking me in the comments now. That's great. I love you too, baby.
All right. So, do you have any questions for me? Other than I'll see you in 4 weeks.
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, let's dig into your head for a little bit here. Uh, what made you decide to start doing the whole Q&A? Hey, let's get to know people and everything, on live stream. I mean, seriously, there's some people that I just, I look at them and go, I don't want to know nothing about that person because they're creepy. You know, you got to be a special kind of, curious to just be like, hey, let's open his head up and see what's inside.
I'm just fascinated by people. So when I first started the channel, it was just riding, and I wanted to do rides, and I wanted a
Yeah.
little bit of maintenance, and then I went out to Forgotten Angels, the first one actually, which would have been actually the second Forgotten Angels, my first one, and was walking around just filming. And I was like, well, let's talk to some people and find out, where they're from and how far they've came. That'd be cool. And as I came up to people, I was like, well, where are you from and what did you ride here? And so I was like, well, I'm so and so, and I ride here. And I was like, oh, so why'd you come to Forgotten Angels? And also they started talking about their history. And I don't think he's in the chat, but my first one to get a true interview from was Nothing at Random, Aaron. And he talked about why he was at Forgotten Angels and what it meant to him and how he got there. And so I'm like, this is something that I can pull out of people. I'm good at this. I'm good at getting people to talk. And so I sat down and I was like, well, I'll start interviewing people. And so then it came like it was like a joke for the first two campouts. I'd walk around going, all right, where are you from? Where are you from? And what do you ride? And how did you get here? What does Forgotten Angels mean to you? And I came back from the my second one, and I was like, well, let me make this into a formal thing. So I wrote out 10 questions, and I started interviewing. And the first people I interviewed were all my friends from Forgotten Angels. Aaron and Sydney, and I think I did Yankee. Um, and then it grew from 10 questions to 15 to 20 to now I've got 25, and I'm throwing extra questions in there, and then I'm taking questions from the audience. And I think it's good not just to know people, but this is people we've hung out with for a few years now. You really get to know these people, what makes them tick, and other people find other people interesting, and it's finding out more about them than just the serious stuff. Some of the stuff might be a little bit serious, but it's fun stuff, and I think it's cool getting to know people. So in that drives me, and obviously other people find it interesting too because they keep coming back to watch. So thanks everybody.
That's cool. Solid answer, man. I mean, it, anybody that knows me, they know that if I'm talking in an absolute serious tone of voice, or if I'm of that mindset, I'm having an incredibly bad day, and I'm probably not very approachable at that point in time right there. Because I'm that one goofy asshole in the crowd that I'll try to make a smart ass remark or a joke about damn near anything, especially whenever stuff's not going according to plan. Because I mean, if you can, if you're stuck in a shit situation, but you can laugh about it, it makes it a little less shitty. So, you got to have a little balance there. But yeah, man, I mean, I can get on board with what you're saying there.
Yeah, I think it's important to learn about people, not just again, especially in the world we live in today. I mean, there's so many more things about people that make them relatable to you and like you. What's the old saying? There's more things about us that make us the same than make us different, and I think that's
Yeah,
important
absolutely.
today. So, and who knew? If we wouldn't have talked like this, you wouldn't know that. I had lived a long time in Arkansas, and you lived in Arkansas, and a lot of relatability there. So it just makes the world a little smaller, I think.
Yeah, a little bit. I had a guy pop up in the comments on one of my videos last week, he was from the same part of Oklahoma that I was living in, for 8 years while I was running a Napa Auto Care Center out there, and he's throwing out names of places and stuff like that there in the area, and I just instantly. Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about right there. He's out there on the east end of town and blah 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 like that, and it's like, holy shit, man! World's not quite as big as it seems sometimes whenever you run across somebody like that.
I already had a question. Yeah, it is
Sorry, I'm
cool.
reading comments.
Yeah, I was too. Yeah, it's really cool how, I mean, I bumped into people that, like, I've gone to the camp out and found out, like Chris, I can't remember his last name now, but it's Chris Livenlarge, lives literally like 10 miles from me. But I've only ever seen him in Tampa and in Land Between the Lakes. I never see him in Memphis where we live, but I see him down there all the time. So weird world we live in. All right, I've kept you long enough. I know it's late there. You got to work tomorrow?
Nope. Well, yeah, I gotta go move a air conditioner at my mom's house. That way I can keep the management happy because they had a disagreement where I put it. So anyway, I get to go play HVAC guy tomorrow. Yay
Lucky
me.
you. I got one more question for you. What do you think about these manual tire changers? I've been looking at, obviously, Harbor Freight has some. They've got a little bit cheaper ones. They got some a little more expensive ones. But then online, they've got this, what's it called? The big
Yeah,
green one,
Rev-Conda.
the
Um,
Rabaconda.
don't get me wrong. That thing does a very good job and it does it very well. But the downside is it comes with a pretty hefty price point. Now, I've changed tires with tire spoons forever, and you've never known misery until you've had to change ATV tires with tire spoons because it's a whole different critter. Uh, we I've looked around for the older attachment that goes on the Harbor Freight tire machine, which is it's glorified bead breaker with a little screw down clamp that holds a car tire. And I've looked around for one of those because they discontinued that motorcycle attachment a few years ago. But if I can find one, I'll snag it and I'll stick it over here in the corner of the shop. That way, I've got it whenever I need it because you can what you can do is you can put inserts in the concrete of your floor to where you don't have a stud sticking up, but you got a threaded insert to where you can just take 4 bolts and zap them in with a cordless drill real quick, and boom, you're in like Flint. You can change your tires, do whatever. When you're not using it, unbolt it real quick, stash it over in the corner, hang it up in the rafters, just wherever in the hell it's out of the way. But I would, me being the cheapskate I am, I would have a real difficult time cutting loose the kind of money that they're asking for a Rabaconda, knowing what I know and knowing what I can do with, 125 to $150 on a Harbor Freight tool
Yeah.
versus their $600 bougie tire changer.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
had they had two
that's a
different
big
ones
pill for me to
there.
swallow, man.
Yeah, when the last time I went to Harbor Freight, they had the $50 one that looks like a little trash can with a lever on it. Then they had a bigger one that was, I think, like $120. It actually looked really nice with the actual lever on it, not just a pry bar. And yeah, I do my own front tires. Like today, I had to bring the back tires a 190, and I can't break that bead myself. I got to bring it down to Cycle Gear. Cycle Gear, if you don't buy the tire from them, they charge you $65 to change that tire for you. I did have a
Yeah.
real nice guy downtown that would do them for $25, and then all of a sudden his shop got really big and really popular, and now he went up to $50 for a tire. So the front tire, I do by myself. I got my own spoons. I use bull snot, best thing in the world. If you don't use bull snot to change your tires, you need to because it's freaking great. But that back tire, I'm just not breaking it. But I do need an actual machine to break that back tire. So I'm just thinking,
Well, here's the thing. You may not realize it, but you actually don't need a machine to break the bead on that tire on the back, dude. What kind of car do you drive?
Mazda, the CX-5.
Okay. What you do, you let all the air out of the tire, you lay it down on a piece of plywood with an old bath towel underneath it, hang your head out the window, you ease your car up to it, and you're wanting to drive just over the side of it, pop, it'll break the bead every time.
Yeah, breaking is not the problem. Getting it
If you're
off,
feeling a little
keeping it
nervous about it,
compressed. Keeping it compressed is the problem while I'm trying to get it off. And I've thought about maybe trying to use C clamps. I've tried maybe trying to zip tie it. That didn't work. It is a stiff, thick ass tire.
are you talking about keeping the bead of the tire down in the wheel, keeping
Yeah,
it pushed down while you're trying to spoon it off?
in the groove. Yeah.
Oh, whenever I'm doing those, I just, if I don't have something that I can mount it to, and if I'm having to do it with spoons, again, I just put a piece of cardboard or a piece of plywood down on the floor. I'll put one knee on it to kind of push it down a little bit, and then just start working it with spoons. Go from there, man.
Okay. I will try it again, but because that's what I do with the front. I just kneel on it, and it's not too bad. I think it's because that tire is just one. It's wide. Two, the channel is not deep in that rim, so it's just a
Yeah.
constant fight.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that will help on stiff tires like that. The old school plain creamy Gojo? Smear that on the tire bead. I know what you're talking about on bull snot, but the Gojo,
Mhm.
dude, that if it needs to move, it'll move.
All right, I'm gonna keep that. You talk about the green or the orange?
No, just the plain old white Gojo.
White
The stuff
Gojo.
that was just like white creamy
Oh, the stuff
Gojo.
that's in the little
Yeah,
tub. Okay, I got you. I'm on.
yeah.
I'm tracking. I'm tracking. I am tracking.
But yeah, I mean that or just good old fashioned Dawn dish soap. Just squirt it on there full strength and smear it around with your hand. Then
Okay.
go wash your hands. That way you can actually hang on to something before you start trying to pry it off. But
That's what I use to put my grips on. I'll soap up. I'll go wash my hands with and leave them real thick with Dawn. Smear it around on the handlebar. Smear it around inside the grips. Just shove them on, and then when it dries, it's there. It also makes them easier to take
I've
off.
never tried Dawn.
I don't use Dawn full strength. I'll
I
soap up
mean,
my hands real thick.
I've used spray paint. I've used hairspray.
I used Windex dries too quick, especially if it's hot. But yeah, the Dawn, I'll soap up my hands, get them real soapy, put some inside the grip, put it on the bar, shove them on. They slide on pretty good, and it's stuck. And then when you go take it off, you break the seal of the grip. You can spray water up inside it, and then start trying to twist it around. Then they just slide right off.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah. I can see how that works. All right. Laura Carpenter, if you're checking out, good night, hun. I appreciate you hanging out with us.
Thanks, Laura. Actually, I have not met. I've met just about all of the people in this chat except for Laura now, and I hope I haven't met her, and I just don't remember. I'd feel like a jerk.
Well,
So,
maybe we'll get lucky and we'll see her down here next month.
all right. If you guys haven't already, guess we're at the end of this. If you haven't already, hit that like, subscribe. Subscribing's free. Go to Joe's channel, which you probably already are. That's why you're here. And give us a like and a subscribe. We both have Patreons. I have a free channel on my Patreon, and I think Joe's. I don't know. I think I paid a little bit for yours, but check us out, man. Interesting
I
stuff.
got free membership on mine.
Yeah, I think I have more, and I don't
got free
regret it.
membership on mine, man.
Yeah, I don't regret it. It gets people in, gets people talking, and that's what I'm all about. But if you haven't, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, and I will see you guys later. Joe, hang around for a second, and we can talk in a minute. Bye, everybody.
Niners, y'all. Love y'all. I'll catch you next trip.